The Trial of Worlds. Ambassador Ilara Chen stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, watching as the massive structure of Nexus Station came into view. The sprawling space station served as the headquarters for the Galactic Union, a confederation of over 300 spacefaring species. Built in the neutral territory between the 5 major galactic arms, its crystalline spires and massive docking bays reflected the light of the nearby binary stars, creating a spectacle that still took her breath away even after dozens of visits. "Ambassador, we're beginning final approach," her aide Marcus announced from behind her. "The tribunal representatives have requested your presence in Chamber 17 immediately upon docking." Ilara turned, her expression carefully neutral despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. "Immediately. The official proceedings aren't scheduled for another 6 hours." Marcus adjusted his uniform nervously. "Yes, Mom." The message was quite insistent. They specifically mentioned it was regarding preliminary matters. The diplomatic euphemism wasn't lost on her. In her 3 years as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Union, she'd learned to read between the lines. Preliminary matters meant trouble. "Very well. Have my files prepared and meet me at the airlock." As their ship glided into its assigned berth, Ilara mentally reviewed what she knew. Earth had only been granted observer status in the Union 10 years ago, after first contact with the Arcturian trading fleet. Humanity was still the new kid on the block, and many of the elder species regarded them with suspicion or outright disdain. Recent diplomatic cables had been worryingly vague, with references to status evaluation and developmental assessments. Something was brewing in the political undercurrents of the Union, and Earth appeared to be the target. The docking procedure completed with a subtle shudder through the ship's frame. Ilara straightened her midnight blue diplomatic uniform, the silver Earth insignia gleaming on her lapel. "Let's not keep them waiting," she said. Chamber 17 was one of the smaller meeting rooms in the diplomatic wing, typically used for minor disputes between member worlds. As Ilara entered, she immediately noted the unusual assembly. Representatives from all 5 of the founding species were present. The insectoid Vesperi, the crystalline Lumidians, the aquatic Merchae, the gaseous Nimbari contained in their environmental suits, and the reptilian Draconids. At the center of the room stood High Adjudicator Clevorn, his scaled face unreadable as his yellow eyes tracked her entrance. "Ambassador Chen," he rumbled, his translator rendering his speech into crisp English, "we appreciate your prompt arrival." Ilara bowed slightly, the appropriate gesture when addressing a member of the Draconid hierarchy. "High Adjudicator, esteemed representatives, I'm honored by your presence, though I confess some surprise at this unscheduled meeting." The Vesperi representative, Zistiki, clicked her mandibles in what Ilara had learned was a sign of impatience. "We have no time for human pleasantries. The matter before us is grave." Clevorn raised a clawed hand. "What Representative Zistik means is that recent developments require immediate attention." He gestured to an empty seat at the table. "Please, Ambassador." As Ilara took her seat, data screens materialized in the air before each representative. A familiar planet appeared, Earth, beautiful and blue. "Ambassador Chen," Clevorn continued, "it is my duty to inform you that a formal petition has been filed to reclassify Earth from observer status to developmental protection status." Ilara felt her blood run cold. Developmental protection status was the diplomatic term for worlds deemed too primitive or unstable for full interaction with the galactic community. It would effectively quarantine Earth, cutting off all trade, cultural exchange, and technological cooperation. "On what grounds?" she asked, keeping her voice steady with effort. The Lumidian representative, a being of living crystal named Prismatix, spoke next, light patterns flickering across its surface in agitation. "Multiple violations of the Developmental Ethics Code have been alleged. Environmental degradation, political instability, technological misuse, cultural aggression tendencies. These are serious accusations," Ilara said carefully. May I ask which member brought this petition forward? A moment of silence followed, broken by the bubbling voice of Merkelp, the Mercia representative. The petition was filed jointly by 17 member worlds, led by the Draconid Empire. Ilara couldn't hide her shock as she looked at Clevorn. The Draconids had been Earth's strongest supporters during their application for observer status. "This is not personal, Ambassador," Clevorn said, noticing her expression. "It is a matter of galactic security and proper development pathways." "I see," Ilara replied, though she didn't. "Not yet. And when will this petition be heard?" "Tomorrow," came the reply from the Nimbari representative, its voice wispy through its translator. "The full tribunal will convene to hear evidence and render judgment." Tomorrow. Ilara's diplomatic mask slipped momentarily. "That's unprecedented. The standard notification period is 60 days. Accelerated proceedings have been approved due to urgent concerns about humanity's recent weapons testing program," Clevorn stated. Ilara's mind raced. The only weapons program of note was the Jupiter Defense Grid, a purely defensive system designed to protect the outer colonies from asteroid impacts. "I must formally protest this timeline," she said. "Earth cannot possibly prepare an adequate defense in less than a day." Statik's antennae quivered. "Your protest is noted and overruled. This is not a negotiation, Ambassador. This is a courtesy notification." As the representatives filed out, Clevorn lingered behind. When they were alone, he leaned closer to Ilara. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his voice lower now, "I recommended against this accelerated timeline. But I was overruled." "Why is this happening, Clevorn? Earth has adhered to every regulation, every treaty." The Draconid's tail swished slowly. "Politics, Ambassador. Many find humanity's rapid adaptation concerning. Your species masters technologies in decades that took others centuries. You ask questions others dare not consider." "That's not a crime," Ilara protested. "No," he agreed, "but it frightens those who prefer the status quo. Be prepared, Ambassador. Tomorrow will not be a fair hearing." After Clevorn departed, Ilara stood alone in the chamber, watching Earth slowly rotate on the display screen. 17 worlds against her own. She needed help. "Marcus," she called through her communicator, "contact Dr. Rohan Sharma at the Xenanthropology Institute immediately, and get me access to the Union archives, particularly the classified sections on developmental assessments from the last 500 years. "The classified sections." Marcus sounded nervous. "Ambassador, we don't have clearance for." "I know," Ilara cut him off. "Just get me in. And find me everything we have on the 17 worlds filing against us. History, trade relations, internal politics. Everything." There was a pause before Marcus replied, "Yes, Ambassador. And may I ask what you're planning?" Ilara looked again at the image of Earth. "I'm not sure yet. But if they want to put humanity on trial, they'd better be prepared to face some uncomfortable truths of their own." The Grand Tribunal chamber was designed to intimidate. Rising in concentric rings nearly 100 meters high, it seated representatives from every Union member world, with the 5 founding species occupying the prominent positions at the lowest level. The accused stood on a circular platform in the center, exposed on all sides. Ilara took her place on this platform, flanked by Marcus and Dr. Sharma, a distinguished xenanthropologist who had studied the founding species for decades. The chamber buzzed with the sounds of hundreds of different species communicating in their native tongues, all simultaneously translated by the neural interfaces every attendee wore. Clevorn, now in the formal regalia of a high adjudicator, raised his ceremonial staff, and silence fell across the chamber. "This extraordinary session of the Grand Tribunal is now convened," he announced, his voice amplified throughout the vast space. "We gather to consider petition U-7734, the reclassification of Sol 3, known as Earth, from observer status to developmental protection status." The formal proceedings began with the presentation of the case against Earth. One by one, Representatives from the 17 petitioning worlds stepped forward to present their evidence. The Exonians showed footage of Earth's wars and conflicts. The Quarians presented data on environmental pollution and species extinction. The Vesperi detailed human technological development rates, highlighting the alarming speed at which weapons technology had advanced. The Draconids themselves presented a psychological analysis suggesting humans possessed unusually high levels of both curiosity and aggression, a combination they deemed dangerous. For 6 hours, Ilara listened as her species was dissected, analyzed, and ultimately condemned as too volatile for galactic society. She took careful notes but did not interrupt or object. The rules of the tribunal allowed the accused to present their defense only after all accusations had been heard. Finally, as the last accuser concluded, Claiborne turned to her. "Ambassador Chen, you may now present Earth's defense. Be advised that the tribunal has allocated 3 hours for your presentation." Ilara rose smoothly. "Thank you, High Adjudicator. Before I begin Earth's formal defense, I would like to submit a preliminary motion." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Preliminary motions were rare in tribunal proceedings. Claiborne's eyes narrowed slightly. "State your motion, Ambassador." "I move for the immediate dismissal of these proceedings on the grounds of procedural violation and evidence tampering," Ilara announced, her voice clear and confident. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations and protests. Claiborne pounded his staff against the floor 3 times, and the noise subsided. "These are serious allegations, Ambassador Chen. Do you have evidence to support this motion?" "I do, High Adjudicator." Ilara activated her data pad, and holograms appeared above the central platform. "During my preparation for today's hearing, I discovered several irregularities in the evidence presented against Earth." She highlighted a section of data from the Quarian presentation. "This environmental impact report has been selectively edited. The full report, which I obtained from the Union archives last night, actually shows that Earth's environmental remediation efforts have resulted in a 23% improvement in atmospheric conditions over the past decade. This positive data was deliberately removed." Before anyone could respond, she moved to the next exhibit. Similarly, this footage of human conflicts presented by the Exonians is not from the past decade as claimed, but from historical archives dating back over a century. Current footage would show the lowest levels of armed conflict in human history. The chamber had grown deathly quiet now. "Most disturbing of all," Ilara continued, "is this psychological assessment presented by the Draconid Empire." She expanded the document, highlighting several sections. "This assessment was not conducted by the Galactic Psychological Institute as claimed. It was created specifically for these proceedings by a private research firm with financial ties to mining interests that would directly benefit from restricting human access to space." She turned to face Claiborne directly. "High Adjudicator, every piece of evidence presented today has been either falsified, manipulated, or presented without proper context. I have prepared a comprehensive analysis of each discrepancy, which I submit to the tribunal now." With a gesture, she sent the data to the tribunal's central system. Display screens throughout the chamber began showing her analysis, with clear markers indicating where evidence had been altered. "In light of these serious violations of tribunal procedure, I move that these proceedings be dismissed immediately, and that an investigation be launched into who orchestrated this coordinated attempt to mislead the tribunal." Claiborne stood frozen, his reptilian features unreadable. The chamber remained silent as the implications of Ilara's accusations sank in. Finally, he spoke. "This tribunal will recess for 1 hour to review Ambassador Chen's allegations. All parties are to remain available." As the representatives filed out in stunned silence, Marcus leaned close to Ilara. "That was incredible. But aren't you worried about the backlash? You just accused 17 worlds of conspiracy." Ilara watched as Claiborne conferred urgently with the other founding species representatives. "I didn't just accuse them, Marcus. I proved it. And this is just the beginning." Dr. Sharma nodded appreciatively. A brilliant opening move, Ambassador. But they'll regroup quickly. What's your next play? Ilara's eyes gleamed with determination. They thought I was just a diplomat they could steamroll. They're about to learn I'm the one person in this room who studied all of their histories more thoroughly than they have themselves. She tapped her data pad, bringing up another set of files. And I've got about 2,000 more surprises waiting for them when we reconvene. The Observer's Gambit. When the tribunal reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The confidence that had permeated the chamber during the accusations against Earth had evaporated, replaced by tense whispers and suspicious glances between representatives of the accusing worlds. Clovorn took his position and struck his staff against the floor once. The chamber fell silent. After reviewing Ambassador Chen's evidence, this tribunal finds sufficient cause for concern regarding the integrity of the presented materials, he announced, his voice carefully measured. However, procedural violations alone are not grounds for complete dismissal. These proceedings will continue, but with heightened scrutiny of all evidence. Ilara had expected this. Complete dismissal would have been politically impossible. Too many powerful interests were invested in the outcome. Ambassador Chen, you may now present Earth's formal defense, Clovorn continued. Ilara stepped forward. Thank you, High Adjudicator. I will not waste this tribunal's time by simply rebutting the flawed accusations already presented. Instead, I believe we must address the fundamental question at the heart of these proceedings. What is humanity's place in the galactic community? She activated her data pad, and a new hologram appeared above the platform, a timeline of human history, from ancient civilizations to their current space exploration efforts. My esteemed colleagues claim that humanity is too volatile, too unpredictable, too dangerous to participate in galactic society. They point to our conflicts, our environmental challenges, our rapid technological development. What they fail to mention is that every spacefaring species in this chamber has followed a similar path. With a gesture, she expanded the display to show comparative timelines for each of the founding species. The Draconids waged a planetary civil war that lasted 3 centuries before achieving unity. The Vesperi strip-mined 6 of their own planetary system's worlds before developing sustainable resource practices. The Lumidians experimented with quantum weapons that temporarily destabilized their local spacetime. Murmurs of discomfort spread through the chamber. Much of this information, while not officially classified, was rarely discussed in public forums. I do not mention these historical facts to criticize, Ilara continued smoothly. Every species faces challenges on their path to maturity. What I find troubling is the suggestion that humanity alone should be judged by the difficulties of our developmental phase, rather than by our progress in overcoming them. She brought up new data showing Earth's rapid advancements in renewable energy, peace initiatives, and collaborative science. In just the 10 years since first contact, Earth has reduced its carbon emissions by 32%, decreased military spending by 45% in favor of scientific research, and unified its space exploration efforts under a single banner. This rate of positive change exceeds that of any founding species during their comparable developmental periods. The Vesperi representative, Zistike, rose from her seat. Progress acknowledged, Ambassador Chen, but you ignore the fundamental concern. Humanity advances too quickly. Your species mastered nuclear fission within decades of discovering basic atomic theory. You achieved spaceflight less than 60 years after your first powered flight. This accelerated development poses inherent dangers. Ilara nodded respectfully. A valid concern, Representative Zistike. However, I would direct the tribunal's attention to this data. She brought up a new set of charts. These are the technology adoption curves for all 17 worlds that brought claims against Earth. Notice anything unusual? Dr. Sharma stepped forward to explain. What Ambassador Chen has identified is a statistical anomaly. All 17 accusing worlds experienced unnaturally prolonged developmental plateaus during their pre-contact periods. Their technological progress followed natural exponential growth patterns, then suddenly flattened for centuries before first contact with the wider galactic community. Ilara continued, and now, compare these to the developmental patterns of worlds not involved in these proceedings. New charts appeared, showing smoother, more consistent growth curves. Natural technological development doesn't plateau without cause. Something artificially held these 17 worlds back. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Ambassador Chen, Colvorn said carefully, "Are you suggesting deliberate interference?" "I am not merely suggesting it, High Adjudicator. I can prove it." Ilara's voice was steady as she delivered the bombshell. "Last night, while researching these anomalies, I discovered classified Union archives documenting a systematic program of developmental suppression carried out against specific promising worlds over the past 3,000 years. The chamber exploded in outrage. Representatives rose from their seats, shouting denials and demands. Colvorn pounded his staff repeatedly, struggling to restore order. When the noise finally subsided, the Nimbari representative's gaseous form pulsed rapidly in agitation. "These are preposterous accusations. What possible motive would exist for such actions?" "Resource competition," Ilara answered simply. Worlds with similar technological trajectories to Earth were identified as potential future competitors by established spacefaring powers. Their development was subtly hindered through various means, from covert manipulation of research databases to outright sabotage of key technological breakthroughs. She displayed more data from the archives. Each of these 17 worlds experienced technological setbacks at crucial developmental junctures, and each time, Union records show surveillance missions or cultural observers present during these periods. The Lumidian representative, Prismatix, flashed patterns of distress across its crystalline surface. Even if true, how did Earth escape this alleged suppression? "We didn't," Ilara replied. "At least, not entirely. Humanity's historical records contain numerous accounts of unexplained technological regressions, lost knowledge, and mysterious destructions of scientific facilities. What the manipulators didn't count on was humanity's remarkable resilience." She highlighted sections of human history showing major setbacks followed by rapid recoveries. "When the Great Library of Alexandria burned, we rebuilt our knowledge. When political pressures suppressed scientific inquiry during various periods, underground networks of scholars preserved and advanced human understanding. Every time external forces pushed us down, we bounced back stronger." Ilara paused, letting her words sink in. This resilience isn't unique to humans. It's a quality shared by all sentient species when faced with adversity. The difference is that Earth never had the benefit of a stable, established galactic power managing our development. We had to solve our problems ourselves, developing innovative approaches and rapid adaptation strategies out of necessity. She changed the display to show recent human innovations that had already begun benefiting other worlds: medical breakthroughs, environmental restoration techniques, efficient energy solutions. The very qualities that these proceedings seek to condemn, our adaptability, our drive, our refusal to accept limitations, are the qualities that make humanity valuable to the galactic community. We don't ask for special treatment. We ask only for the opportunity to contribute. Marcus handed Ilara a small data crystal, which she held up for all to see. On this crystal is evidence identifying specific individuals and organizations responsible for the developmental suppression program. I have not yet made this information public, as my purpose is not to create discord within the Union. My purpose is to ensure fair treatment for Earth and all developing worlds. Colvorn's expression had turned grave. "Ambassador Chen, if your allegations are accurate, this would constitute one of the most serious violations of Union principles in our history." "Yes," Ilara agreed, "which is why I propose a different path forward." She deactivated the accusatory displays and instead brought up a new proposal, a framework for technological and cultural exchange between Earth and the 17 accusing worlds. Rather than punishment or isolation, I suggest collaboration. Earth's rapid development has given us insights that could help worlds struggling with similar challenges. In return, these established civilizations can offer guidance to help us avoid their historical mistakes. Together, we can create a more equitable model for bringing new species into the galactic community. For several moments, the chamber remained silent as representatives digested her proposal. Then, to everyone's surprise, Zystica of the Vesperi rose again. The Vesperi Collective withdraws its support for reclassifying Earth, she announced, her mandibles clicking softly. Ambassador Chen's evidence is persuasive. More importantly, her proposal offers greater benefit than restriction would provide. One by one, representatives from other accusing worlds stood to withdraw their support for the petition. Within minutes, only 3 of the original 17 remained committed to the reclassification. Kulvorn surveyed the chamber, then struck his staff against the floor 3 times. By clear majority decision, petition U-7734 for the reclassification of Earth is denied. Earth will maintain its observer status. He paused, then added, furthermore, this tribunal authorizes the formation of a special commission to investigate Ambassador Chen's allegations regarding developmental interference. The commission will be headed by. He hesitated, then made an unprecedented decision. Ambassador Chen herself, given her demonstrated investigative abilities. Ilara inclined her head respectfully, masking her surprise. I am honored, High Adjudicator, and accept this responsibility. As the formal session concluded and representatives began filing out, Kulvorn approached Ilara privately. A remarkable defense, Ambassador, he said quietly. I confess I did not expect such thoroughness from a species so new to our community. Thank you, High Adjudicator, Ilara replied. Though I'm curious, you led the petition against Earth, yet you've appointed me to head the investigation. Why? Kulvorn's scaled lips curved in what might have been a smile. I never believed Earth should be restricted. I believed Earth needed to prove itself capable of navigating galactic politics. There are forces in the Union far more dangerous than an open challenge in the tribunal. Understanding dawned on Ilara. You engineered this trial. I merely created an opportunity, the Draconid corrected. You did the rest, more impressively than I anticipated. The Union has grown stagnant. Ambassador Chen, we need species that question, that challenge, that refuse to accept artificial limitations. He glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. The developmental suppression program is real, and its architects still hold considerable power. As head of the investigation commission, you'll have the authority and resources to expose them fully. Use that power wisely. With a formal bow, Kulvorn departed, leaving Ilara to contemplate the deeper game she had unwittingly become part of. 6 months later, Ilara stood at the viewport of her new office on Nexus Station, watching ships from dozens of worlds coming and going. Below her desk lay stacks of reports, evidence of a suppression conspiracy spanning centuries and involving officials from nearly 30 worlds. The door chimed, and Marcus entered, now wearing the formal uniform of a full diplomatic attaché. The representatives from the Exchange Council have arrived. Ambassador, he announced. They're eager to begin discussions about implementing Earth's educational exchange program. Ilara smiled. The program had been her first major initiative as the newly appointed Undersecretary for Emerging Civilizations, a position created specifically for her after her investigation exposed the full extent of the developmental suppression conspiracy. Send them in, she said, turning from the viewport. And has there been any word from the exploration team? Marcus handed her a datapad. Just arrived. They've made contact with the pre-spaceflight civilization on Proxima Centauri. Initial cultural assessments indicate they're approaching their own industrial revolution. Perfect timing. Ilara murmured, reviewing the report. Under her guidance, the Union had established new protocols for contacting developing worlds, not to hinder their progress, but to offer guidance while respecting their autonomy. As the Exchange Council representatives entered, a diverse group including species that had once stood against Earth, Ilara reflected on how quickly things had changed. Humanity had gone from facing quarantine to leading a reformation of the Union's approach to emerging civilizations. "Welcome," she greeted them warmly. "Let's discuss how we can build a galaxy where every species has the chance to reach their full potential." The representatives took their seats, and Ilara couldn't help but smile at the irony. They had tried to silence the observer, only to discover she was the one voice they most needed to hear. In the vastness of space, countless civilizations were developing, evolving, struggling with the same challenges humanity had faced. And now, thanks to one woman who refused to accept artificial limitations, they would find not suppression waiting for them among the stars, but support. Earth had proven that resilience, adaptability, and the courage to question established systems weren't dangerous traits to be feared. They were essential qualities for the continued growth of galactic civilization itself. The silent observer had become the catalyst for change, and the galaxy would never be the same.